The main hall of Terran Republic headquarters buzzed with activity. Officers in crisp blue uniforms moved quickly between stations. Screens on the walls showed maps of space with blinking lights marking human colonies. Admiral Jeho Park stood at the command center, his gray hair cut short above a face lined with worry. 3 years of peace had made everyone soft. The Terran Republic had grown, built more ships, and settled more planets. But Jeho never forgot what war felt like. "Admiral, there's someone at the main gate," said a young officer. "She's demanding to speak with you." Jeho frowned. "Who is it?" "Sir, she claims to be Commander Morgana Farstan." The room went quiet. Everyone knew that name. Commander Farstan had been a hero, the best pilot in the fleet, until her ship exploded near the Perseus Vale 3 years ago. Jeho himself had signed her death certificate. "Bring her in," Jeho ordered, with guards. 20 minutes later, the doors opened. A woman walked in between 4 armed soldiers. Her red hair was cut short and uneven. Her face was thinner than Jeho remembered, with a new scar running along her jaw. But it was Morgana Farstan. Somehow, impossibly, it was her. "Commander Farstan," Jeho said, his voice steady despite his shock. "You were declared dead 3 years ago." Morgana smiled, but her eyes remained cold. "Sorry to disappoint you, Admiral. How did you survive the explosion? Where have you been?" "I have a lot to tell you," she said. "But first, you need to know that we are all in danger. There's something coming from beyond the Orion Arm, something that destroys everything in its path." Jeho looked at the officers around him. Some looked scared. Others looked like they didn't believe her. "Take her to medical," Jeho ordered. "Full scans. Then we'll talk." In the medical bay, doctors checked Morgana while security officers watched. Lieutenant Ta-1 Kim stood in the corner, recording everything. At 28, Ta-1 was the youngest tactical officer on Jeho's staff. He had been chosen to document Morgana's return. "Your DNA matches our records," the doctor said. "You are Commander Morgana Farstan." "I know who I am," Morgana said. "What I need is for you to listen to me." Ta-1 stepped forward. "I'm listening, Commander." Morgana looked at him. For a moment, her hard expression softened. "What's your name, Lieutenant?" "Ta-1 Kim, Tactical Division." "Well, Ta-1 Kim, would you believe me if I told you that I've spent the last 3 years with aliens who are far more advanced than humans?" Ta-1 didn't answer right away. He thought about the vastness of space, the billions of stars in the galaxy. "I would consider it possible," he finally said. Morgana smiled, a real smile this time. "They're called the Voidwalkers. They saved me after my ship was destroyed. But they're not the ones we need to worry about." Her face grew serious again. "There's another species coming. They call themselves the Swarm. They consume everything, planets, ships, people, and they're heading straight for Terran space." Admiral Jeho walked into the room. "That's enough for now, Commander. You'll be debriefed properly tomorrow." "We don't have time," Morgana started. "You've been gone for 3 years. Jeho cut her off. "1 more day won't make a difference. Lieutenant Kim will escort you to your quarters." As Ta-1 led Morgana through the hallways, he noticed how she looked at everything with both familiarity and distance, like someone returning to their hometown after a long absence. "Do you believe me?" she asked suddenly. Ta-1 considered the question. "I believe you survived something terrible, whether it was aliens or something else. I don't know yet." "Smart answer," Morgana said. "But soon you won't have the luxury of doubt. None of us will." She stopped walking and looked out a window at the red Martian landscape. "I came back to warn humanity, Lieutenant. The question is, will humanity listen in time?" The debriefing room was small and plain. A metal table sat in the middle with 4 chairs around it. The walls were white with no windows. A camera in the corner recorded everything. Morgana Farstan sat with her back straight, hands folded on the table. Across from her were Lieutenant Ta-Won Kim and Captain Hyun Choi, a senior intelligence officer with sharp eyes and a face that gave away nothing. "Start from the beginning," Captain Choi said. Her voice was calm but firm. "What happened after your ship was hit?" Morgana closed her eyes for a moment. "My ship broke apart. I got to the escape pod, but systems were failing. I was drifting, running out of air." She opened her eyes. Then there was a light, brighter than anything I'd ever seen. It pulled my pod in. "The Voidwalkers?" Ta-Won asked. Morgana nodded. Their ship was enormous, like a city in space. They'd brought me inside, kept me in a room with clear walls, like a zoo animal. Captain Choi wrote something in her tablet. "How long did they keep you prisoner?" "I wasn't exactly a prisoner. More like a specimen." Morgana's face hardened. 6 months, maybe. It's hard to track time when you can't see the sun. They studied me, tested me. They were curious. "What do they look like?" Ta-Won asked. "Tall, very tall. Their skin changes colors based on their emotions. They have 4 arms and move like water, smooth and flowing." Morgana traced a pattern on the table with her finger. "They don't speak like we do. They communicate through colors and patterns on their skin." "How did you learn to communicate with them?" Captain Choi asked. Morgana smiled slightly. "I started drawing. Simple pictures at first, then more complex ones. They realized I was intelligent, trying to communicate. That's when everything changed." Ta-Won leaned forward. "Changed how?" "They moved me to better quarters, gave me tools to draw and write. They learned our language surprisingly fast." Morgana's eyes grew distant. "They showed me their technology, their history, their art. They've been exploring space for thousands of years." "Why didn't they contact us officially?" Captain Choi asked, suspicion clear in her voice. "They observe many species. They rarely interfere." Morgana looked directly at Captain Choi. "Until now." The door opened, and Admiral Ji-ho walked in. He stood at the end of the table, his face stern. "Tell them about the swarm." Morgana's shoulders tensed. "The Voidwalkers have been running from them for centuries. The swarm aren't just aliens. They're like a force of nature. They move through space in massive ships that look like insects. They land on planets and strip them bare." "Bare of what?" Ta-Won asked. "Everything. Metals, plants, animals, people." Morgana's voice grew quiet. "They break everything down to basic elements and use it to build more of themselves. More ships, more swarm." "And they're coming here?" Captain Choi asked. Morgana nodded. "The Voidwalkers have been tracking them. That's why they finally let me go. To warn humanity." Admiral Ji-ho frowned. "Why not come themselves? Why send you?" "They feared how humans would react to them. We're known for shooting first." Morgana stood up slowly. "But there's more. The Voidwalkers gave me something." All 3 looked at her with new interest. "Knowledge," Morgana said. "I know how their ships work, how their shields function. Technology that's centuries ahead of ours." She placed her hands flat on the table. "I can help make our ships stronger. Fast enough to evacuate colonies if needed. Strong enough to maybe, just maybe, fight back." Ta-Won looked at Admiral Ji-ho. The older man's face showed conflict. "If what you're saying is true," Ji-ho said, "we need proof." Morgana smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. "Take me to your best battlecruiser. Give me 1 day with your engineers. I'll show you proof." Captain Choi looked skeptical. "Admiral, I don't think." "Do it," Ji-ho ordered. "Lieutenant Kim, you'll accompany Commander Farstan. Watch her closely." He looked at Morgana. "1 day. Show us what you know." Morgana nodded. "1 day is all I need, and then you'll believe everything I told you." The military council room was filled with raised voices. 12 high-ranking officers sat around a large round table. Admiral Ji-ho stood at one end, trying to keep order. "We cannot trust the word of one person who disappeared for 3 years," shouted General Minji Song, slamming her hand on the table. "Even if that person is Commander Farstan?" asked Colonel Da-hyun Ryu. He was older than most officers in the room, with a thick scar across his cheek from the border wars. He had been Morgana's commanding officer before her disappearance. "Especially if it's Farstan," said General Song. "We have no idea what happened to her out there. She could be compromised." Colonel Ryu stood up. He was not a tall man, but his presence filled the room. "I trained Morgana Farstan. I know her character. If she says there's a threat coming, we should listen." Outside the council room, Morgana sat on a bench in the hallway. Her hands were shaking slightly. She closed her eyes and took deep breaths, trying to calm herself. Taiwan watched her from a few feet away. He noticed how she jumped at loud noises, how her eyes constantly scanned the room, looking for exits. "Are you okay?" he asked. Morgana opened her eyes. 3 years with aliens who looked nothing like humans. Now I'm back, and everything is too loud, too bright, too human. She gave a weak smile. "It's hard to adjust." Before Taiwan could respond, the door opened. Admiral Jeho stepped out. "They want to see your proof now," he said to Morgana. "The battlecruiser TRS Thunder is ready for you." The TRS Thunder was the newest ship in the Terran fleet. It floated in the shipyard above Mars, its hull gleaming in the sunlight. Morgana, Taiwan, and a team of engineers took a shuttle up to the massive vessel. Chief Engineer Hansol Lee met them at the docking bay. She was young for her position, with quick eyes and hands that never seemed to stay still. "What exactly are we doing here, Commander?" Hansol asked, not bothering to hide her skepticism. "I'm going to improve your shields," Morgana said simply, "by about 300%. Hansol laughed. "That's impossible. We've been working on shield technology for decades." "You've been working with human ideas," Morgana replied. "I have something new." For the next 6 hours, Morgana worked with the engineering team. She drew diagrams, rewrote code, and reconfigured shield generators. Her hands moved with confidence, never hesitating. Taiwan watched in amazement as the engineers went from doubting to amazed to excited. "This shouldn't work," Hansol said, staring at the screen showing the shield diagnostics. "But it does. How is this possible?" Morgana didn't answer. Her face was pale with exhaustion. They tested the new shields with a series of weapons. Each time, the shields held stronger than before. When they were done, Hansol couldn't stop smiling. "This is revolutionary," she said. "We need to implement this on all our ships." Back at headquarters, the council listened to Hansol's report with growing interest. The doubt on their faces slowly changed to concern. "If Commander Farstan can do this," Colonel Ryu said, "then perhaps the rest of her story is true as well." Admiral Jeho nodded. "We need to take the threat of this swarm seriously." He looked at Morgana. "But we need more information. Where will they attack first? How much time do we have?" "I don't know exactly," Morgana admitted. "But there are outposts near the edge of our space. If we set up the right sensors, we might be able to detect them coming." "Then that's what we'll do," Jeho decided. He looked around the room. "This stays classified. No panic. We prepare quietly." As the meeting ended, Taiwan noticed Morgana standing alone by the window. Despite proving herself, she looked isolated, a hero who had returned, but didn't quite belong anymore. "Commander," he said, approaching her. "What happens now?" Morgana looked out at the red Martian landscape. "Now we prepare for war, Lieutenant. A war unlike any humanity has ever faced." 1 week after Morgana's shield demonstration, the mood at Terran Republic headquarters changed. Reports started coming in from the outer colonies. 3 small outposts near the edge of Republic space had gone silent. Admiral Jeho called an emergency meeting. Morgana, Taiwan, and Colonel Ryu gathered in the small war room, faces grim as they looked at the star map. "First it was Delta Station," Admiral Jeho said, pointing to a blinking red dot. Then Outpost 17. Now New Horizon. All gone silent within 2 days. It's starting, Morgana said quietly. The swarm is here. Colonel Ryu frowned. We need to send ships to investigate. Not just any ships. Admiral Jeho replied. We need stealth. We need speed. He looked at Morgana. And we need your knowledge. Morgana nodded, her face showing no surprise. I've arranged a special mission, Jeho continued. The TRS Dauntless is ready for launch. It's our newest stealth vessel, small but fast. Perfect for reconnaissance. Who's going? Colonel Ryu asked. Commander Farstan will lead the mission, Jeho said. Lieutenant Kim will assist. Taiwan's eyes widened. Me, sir. You've been with Commander Farstan since her return. You know her story better than anyone, Jeho explained. Besides, you're our best tactical officer. We'll need an engineer, Morgana added, someone who understands the shield modifications. Already arranged, Jeho said. Dr. Suja Kang from the Science Division will join you. She's been studying your shield technology day and night. When do we leave? Morgana asked. Tomorrow, Jeho replied. The situation is moving faster than we expected. That night, Tadawun couldn't sleep. He walked through the quiet hallways of the base, thinking about the mission ahead. Somehow, he found himself near Morgana's quarters. To his surprise, she was sitting outside her door, looking up at the stars through a hallway window. Trouble sleeping, Lieutenant? She asked without looking at him. Yes, Tadawun admitted. You too. I haven't slept well since I got back, she said. Too much noise in my head. Taiwan sat down beside her, keeping some distance. Are you afraid? About tomorrow. Morgana finally looked at him. No. I'm afraid about what happens if we fail. They sat in silence for a while, watching the stars. There's something I haven't told anyone, Morgana said suddenly. Not even Admiral Jeho. Taiwan waited, not pushing her to continue. The Voidwalkers did more than just teach me, she said, her voice low. They gave me something. She pulled back her sleeve, revealing a small, faintly glowing mark on her wrist. It pulsed with a soft blue light. A quantum communication device. It's part of me now. Taiwan stared at it. You can talk to them. Not exactly talk. It's more like sharing images, feelings. It's limited. She covered her wrist again, but it means they're still watching, still interested in what happens to us. Why tell me this? Tadwan asked. Because I need someone to know, someone I can trust. She looked at him closely. Can I trust you, Taiwan Kim? He considered the question carefully. Yes, he finally said. But shouldn't Admiral Jeho know? The military would want to study it. Study me. Morgana shook her head. We don't have time for that. Not with the swarm approaching. The next morning, they boarded the TRS Dauntless. It was smaller than the Thunder, built for speed and stealth rather than power. The crew was minimal, just 12 people in total. Dr. Suja Kang met them at the bridge. She was tall and thin, with short black hair and intense eyes. Commander Farstan, she said, bowing slightly. Your shield modifications are brilliant. I have so many questions. Later, Doctor, Morgana replied with a small smile. First, we have a mission. Chief Security Officer Jin Woo-yoon joined them, his broad shoulders filling his uniform. Course is set for Proxima Centauri Outpost. It's the closest to the three that went silent. Good, Morgana said, taking the captain's chair. She looked at the crew, each face watching her expectantly. Let's find out what we're dealing with. The Dauntless pulled away from Mars, engines glowing blue in the darkness of space. Ahead of them lay the unknown, and possibly humanity's greatest threat. The trip to Proxima Centauri took 3 days. The TRS Dauntless moved fast, its engines humming quietly through space. Morgana spent most of her time on the bridge, watching the stars. Taiwan often found her there late at night, when most of the crew was sleeping. "We're approaching Proxima Centauri," Jin Woo announced on the morning of the third day. "Sensors active. Stealth systems engage." The main screen showed the Proxima Centauri outpost, or what was left of it. Half of the station was gone, torn apart like paper. The other half still had lights on, but they flickered weakly. "Life signs?" Morgana asked. Dr. Kang checked her screen. "Very faint. Maybe 10 people out of 200. We need to help them," Taiwan said. Morgana nodded. "Prepare a rescue team. Jinwoo, you'll lead. Taiwan, you go too. I'll stay with the ship." Jinwoo gathered 4 crew members. They put on spacesuits and boarded a small shuttle. The shuttle left the Dauntless and moved slowly toward the damaged station. "Stay alert," Morgana's voice said through their comms. The swarm could still be nearby. The shuttle docked with the station. Jinwoo led the team inside. The air was thin and emergency lights cast red shadows on the walls. They found survivors hiding in a sealed storage room. "Thank you," said one woman, her face pale with fear. "They came so fast. We had no warning." "Who?" Taiwan asked. "What did they look like?" "Like insects," the woman whispered. "Huge ships shaped like bugs. They attached to the station and started eating it. Metal, plastic, everything." They loaded the survivors onto the shuttle and headed back to the Dauntless. As they approached, Morgana's urgent voice came through the comms. "Hurry. We've detected something." The shuttle docked quickly. Jinwoo was the last one out, helping an injured man. Suddenly, the ship shook. Jinwoo lost his balance and fell. A piece of metal broke loose from the ceiling and struck him in the leg. "Jinwoo!" Taiwan shouted. He rushed back and helped the security chief to safety. On the bridge, Morgana was giving orders. Full stealth mode. Kill all external lights. Minimal power only. The screen showed a massive object moving past them, less than a kilometer away. It looked like a giant beetle, its shell made of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. It was at least 10 times bigger than the Dauntless. "Is that?" Dr. Kang whispered. "The swarm," Morgana confirmed. "A scout ship." They watched in silence as the huge ship approached what remained of the outpost. Long, thin arms extended from its body, attaching to the station. The metal of the station began to dissolve where the arms touched it. "It's breaking down the materials," Dr. Kang said, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "Converting them somehow into more of itself," Morgana added. "More ships, more swarm." They stayed hidden for 6 hours, watching as the swarm ship methodically took apart the station. When it was done, nothing remained. The ship then turned and moved away, accelerating rapidly. "Track it," Morgana ordered. "We need to know where it's going." Dr. Kang worked at her console. "It's heading deeper into our territory, toward the Newton colony. There are 50,000 people there." In the medical bay, Jinwoo lay on a bed while a doctor treated his leg. Taiwan sat beside him. "Will he be okay?" Taiwan asked the doctor. "Yes, but he needs proper medical care. We should return to Mars." Taiwan went to the bridge to tell Morgana. "We can't go back yet," she said. "We need more information." Dr. Kang approached them, her face serious. "Commander, I've been analyzing the readings from the swarm ship. It leaves a very specific quantum signature." She pulled up a chart on her screen. "And it matches the energy patterns in the technology you brought back." Morgana's face went pale. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying the Voidwalkers and the swarm share technological origins." Dr. Kang looked at Morgana. "They're related somehow." Taiwan looked at Morgana, remembering the glowing mark on her wrist. She met his eyes, and he saw fear there for the first time. The Dauntless raced through space, pushing its engines to the limit. They needed to warn Earth about the swarm ship heading toward Newton Colony. In the ship's small meeting room, Morgana sat with Taiwan and Dr. Kang. Jinwoo lay in medical bay, his leg bandaged but healing. "We need to talk about what you found," Morgana said to Dr. Kang. "About the quantum signatures." Dr. Kang nodded. "The energy patterns match. I've checked 3 times." She looked at Morgana with curious eyes. "Did you know?" Morgana was quiet for a moment. "I suspected." The Voidwalkers never spoke directly about the swarm's origins, but there were hints. "Hints of what?" Ta-One asked. Morgana sighed. "The Voidwalkers aren't just observers. They've been running from the swarm for centuries, yes, but it's more than that." She looked at Ta-One. "They've been using other species as buffers, as shields." Ta-One frowned. "What do you mean?" "They find promising species, ones with good technology and fighting instincts. They share some of their knowledge, just enough to make those species useful in a fight against the swarm." Morgana's voice grew bitter. "Then they watch as those species fight and die, buying the Voidwalkers more time to run." Dr. Kang's eyes widened. "And humans are next. We're the new shield." Morgana nodded. "That's why they sent me back. Not to save humanity, but to prepare us to fight their battle." The room was quiet as they absorbed this news. Finally, Ta-One spoke. "Does that change anything? The swarm is still coming. We still need to fight." "You're right," Morgana agreed. "But we need to be smart about it. We can't trust the Voidwalkers completely." The ship's communication system beeped. "Commander," said the communications officer, "we're receiving a message from Admiral Park. Priority 1. They moved to the bridge. Admiral Jeho's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired. "Commander Farstan," he said, "your report about the swarm ship has been received. We're evacuating Newton Colony now." "Good," Morgana replied. "We're on our way back. We've learned more about the swarm and the Voidwalkers." Admiral Jeho's face grew strange. "There's something you should know. Something I didn't tell you before you left." He took a deep breath. "There's a division within the Republic government called Prometheus Division. They've known about both alien species for some time." Morgana's face hardened. "What?" "About 5 years ago, one of our deep space missions found a damaged ship, not human-made. They brought back technology, similar to what you showed us." Jeho looked ashamed. "Prometheus Division has been studying it in secret. They've built research stations throughout the solar system." "Why keep it secret?" Ta-One asked. "Fear of panic. And honestly, power. The technology is advanced. Whoever controls it has an advantage." Jeho shook his head. "I only learned about it after you returned." "So the Republic has been preparing?" Dr. Kang asked. "Not enough," Jeho replied. "Prometheus Division has been focused on weapons, not defense. They weren't expecting the swarm so soon." Morgana leaned closer to the screen. "Admiral, there's more you need to know. The Voidwalkers aren't our friends. They're using us to fight their battle." Jeho nodded slowly. "I was afraid of something like that. Return to Mars immediately. The Military Council is meeting to plan our response." As they ended the call, Morgana turned to Ta-One. "The Voidwalkers are using us. Prometheus Division is using alien tech. Everyone has secrets." She touched her wrist where the communication device was hidden. "Including me." "What do we do?" Ta-One asked. "We prepare for war," Morgana said. "But we fight for humanity, not for the Voidwalkers." She looked out at the stars. "And we need to be very careful about who we trust." The Dauntless turned toward Mars, its engines glowing blue against the blackness of space. Behind them, the swarm ship continued its path of destruction, unaware that humans now knew of its coming. Ahead lay Mars, Earth, and billions of people who had no idea how much their world was about to change. When the Dauntless landed on Mars, Morgana could see that things had changed. Ships filled the sky. Soldiers rushed across the landing field. The base was preparing for war. Admiral Jeho met them at the dock with Colonel Da Hyun-ryu. The colonel's face was grim. "Welcome back," Jiho said. The situation has developed quickly. 3 more colonies have gone silent. The swarm is moving faster than we expected. How are we responding? Morgana asked as they walked toward headquarters. The fleet is mobilizing, Colonel Ryu said. We're evacuating civilian populations to underground shelters on Earth and Mars. Your shield technology is being installed on all major ships. Inside headquarters, they entered a large room filled with screens and maps. Officers moved quickly between stations, giving orders and studying reports. Someone I want you to meet, Admiral Jiho said. He led them to a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes. This is Director Hyun-Sik Baek of Prometheus Division. Director Baek bowed slightly. Commander Farstan, your return has accelerated our plans. Morgana's eyes narrowed. What plans exactly? Survival. Commander, Baek replied calmly. We've been studying both the Voidwalkers and the Swarm for years. We knew this day would come. Then why weren't we better prepared? Ta-1 asked. Politics, Baek said with a small frown. Limited resources, disbelief. The usual problems. He looked at Morgana. But now that you're back with proof, things are moving quickly. A new person entered the room. A woman in a formal suit rather than a military uniform. She had a calm face and moved with quiet confidence. Ambassador Ju-Yun Lee, Admiral Jiho said. She leads our diplomatic team. Diplomatic? Dr. Kang asked. With the swarm. Ambassador Lee shook her head. With the Voidwalkers, we need to establish direct contact. Morgana tensed. She felt Ta-1 watching her. The Voidwalkers won't come to us, Morgana said. They prefer to work through intermediaries. Like you, Director Baek said. It wasn't a question. The room grew quiet. Even the busy officers seemed to slow down. We know about your implant, Commander, Admiral Jiho said softly. Morgana's hand moved to her wrist. How? Medical scans when you returned, Director Baek said. We didn't understand what it was until recently. Morgana looked at Ta-1. He shook his head slightly. He hadn't told them. We're not angry, Ambassador Lee said. In fact, we see it as an opportunity. A direct channel to the Voidwalkers. What exactly are you asking? Morgana said. We need an alliance, Colonel Ryu explained. Your shield technology is helpful, but it won't be enough. We need more of their advanced weapons if we're going to defeat the swarm, even knowing they're using us as shields. Morgana asked. Yes, Admiral Jiho said firmly. We can worry about the Voidwalkers later. First, we survive the swarm. Ambassador Lee stepped forward. Will you help us, Commander? Will you be our bridge to them? Morgana looked around the room. These were her people. Humans. Imperfect, sometimes foolish, but hers. I'll do it, she said. But I want to be clear about the terms. We fight the swarm. The Voidwalkers provide technology, but humanity makes its own decisions. Agreed, Ambassador Lee said. That night, Morgana sat alone in her quarters. She stared at the small blue light pulsing under her skin. She closed her eyes and focused her thoughts, the way the Voidwalkers had taught her. Images flowed through her mind. Stars, ships, patterns of light. She sent her own images back. Earth, Mars, human fleets preparing for battle. A knock at her door broke her concentration. It was Ta-1. It's done, Morgana told him. They've agreed to help. Can we trust them? Ta-1 asked. No, Morgana said simply. But we can use them, just as they're using us. The Council wants to see you tomorrow, Ta-1 said. They're planning the defense of the solar system. Before Morgana could respond, a loud alarm sounded throughout the base. Red lights flashed in the hallway. What's happening? She asked. Ta-1's communicator beeped. He answered it, his face growing pale as he listened. They're here, he said. The swarm has reached Neptune. They'll be at Earth in 3 days. The next 3 days were a blur of activity. Ships from all over the Terran Republic gathered near Earth's orbit. The fleet was massive, over 200 warships, from small fighters to huge battlecruisers. Every ship had been upgraded with Morgana's shield technology. But it wasn't enough. Everyone knew it. Morgana spent hours each day communicating with the Voidwalkers through her implant. Her skin was pale, and dark circles formed under her eyes. The effort drained her, but it worked. The Voidwalkers sent technical plans for weapons that could hurt the swarm. "How are you holding up?" Ta-1 asked on the morning of the third day. They stood in the war room on Mars, watching as the fleet moved into position. "I'll be fine," Morgana said, though her hand shook slightly. "The Voidwalkers have shared plans for a new weapon. Dr. Kang is implementing it now." Admiral Jiho entered the room with Colonel Ryu. "The swarm has passed Jupiter," Jiho announced. "At least 30 ships, including one that's bigger than anything we've ever seen." "The mothership," Morgana said. "It controls the others." Colonel Ryu pointed to a screen showing the fleet formations. "We've arranged the ships in defensive layers. But we need to do more than just defend. We need to attack the mothership." "How?" Ta-1 asked. "It will be protected." "I've been working on that," Dr. Kang said, walking in with a tablet in her hand. "Using the Voidwalker designs, I've modified a small ship. It can penetrate the swarm's outer layer." "Someone will need to pilot it," Colonel Ryu said. "A strike team to target key systems on the mothership." "I'll do it," Ta-1 said without hesitation. Morgana looked at him sharply. "It's a suicide mission." "Not if we hit them with everything else we've got," Dr. Kang said. "Create enough chaos, and the strike team might have a chance." Admiral Jiho nodded. "Lieutenant Kim will lead the strike team. Commander Farstan, I need you here. Your connection to the Voidwalkers makes you our best tactical coordinator." 6 hours later, the battle began. The swarm ships appeared suddenly near Earth's moon. They were massive dark shapes against the stars. The biggest one, the mothership, was the size of a small city. The Terran fleet moved to meet them. From the command center on Mars, Morgana watched through multiple screens. Her implant glowed bright blue as she channeled information between the Voidwalkers and the Terran commanders. "First line, engage," Admiral Jiho ordered. The space between Earth and the moon filled with light as weapons fired. The new Voidwalker weapons cut through the swarm ship's outer layers, but the damage healed almost instantly. "They adapt quickly," Morgana warned. "Keep changing attack patterns." The battle spread across the solar system. Smaller swarm ships broke through the first line. Some headed for Earth, others for Mars. Taiwan's strike team launched in their modified ship. It was small and fast, barely visible against the darkness of space. "We're approaching the mothership," Ta-1 reported. "Heavy resistance." Aboard the strike ship, alarms blared as smaller swarm vessels attacked. 2 of Ta-1's team members were injured. The ship took damage, but kept moving toward the mothership. On Mars, Dr. Kang rushed into the command center. "I've figured it out," she shouted. "The quantum signatures. We can use them against the swarm." "How?" Morgana asked. "Reverse the frequency. It will turn their consumption process against them." Dr. Kang's eyes were wide with excitement. "They'll start breaking down their own ships instead of ours." Morgana relayed the information to the Voidwalkers through her implant. For a moment, there was no response. Then a flood of technical data filled her mind. "They're helping," she told Admiral Jiho. "They're sending the exact calculations." As Dr. Kang worked to implement the new plan, the battle grew worse. The main Terran fleet was taking heavy losses. Taiwan's strike team had reached the mothership but was struggling to penetrate deeper. "We need more time." Taiwan's voice crackled through the comms. "Holding them off as long as we can," Colonel Ryu responded. He was commanding the front line from his ship. "Just get it done." Suddenly, Colonel Ryu's ship moved forward, directly into a swarm of enemy vessels. "What are you doing?" Admiral Jiho demanded. "Creating a distraction," Colonel Ryu replied calmly. Tell my family I did my duty. His ship exploded in a blinding flash, taking dozens of swarm vessels with it. 3 months after the battle for Sol, Earth was still rebuilding. The swarm had been defeated, but at great cost. 1/3 of the Terran fleet was destroyed. Millions of people had died. Parts of Earth's moon were gone, consumed by the swarm before the tide turned. In the garden outside Terran Republic headquarters on Mars, Morgana sat on a bench looking at the red sky. Her red hair had grown longer, and she wore a new uniform with admiral stripes on the shoulders. She touched the spot on her wrist where the implant had been. It no longer glowed. The connection to the Voidwalkers had changed, becoming permanent but less visible. Taiwan approached, walking with a slight limp. He too wore a new uniform, with commander stripes. Admiral Farstan, he said with a small smile. The council is waiting. Morgana nodded and stood. How's the leg, Commander Kim? Better every day, he replied. Dr. Kang says the new treatment is working. They walked together to the council chamber. Inside, the mood was different from before. The fear was gone, replaced by purpose and pride. Admiral Jeho stood at the head of the table. Around it sat the military leadership, and for the first time, 3 tall figures with skin that shifted colors like flowing water. The Voidwalkers had finally shown themselves. Admiral Farstan, Jeho said, we are discussing the Phoenix Project. Morgana took her seat. The deep space mission. Yes, Jeho confirmed. The Voidwalkers have agreed to share more technology, faster engines, better weapons. They recognize humanity as allies now, not just shields. One of the Voidwalker's skin rippled with blue and green patterns. A translator device on the table spoke in a calm voice. Your species has proven its worth, it said. The swarm retreated, but they will return. We must prepare. The TRS Phoenix will be ready for launch in 2 weeks, Admiral Jeho said. The most advanced ship ever built by humans, with Voidwalker enhancements. And its mission? Morgana asked, though she already knew. Exploration beyond known space, Jeho said. Diplomatic contact with other civilizations, and he looked at the Voidwalkers, the search for the precursors. The room grew quiet. This was new information. What precursors? Taiwan asked. The Voidwalker's skin turned deep purple. The ones who came before. The civilization that created both our species and the swarm. Their technology still exists in distant parts of the galaxy. Dr. Kang, now the head of the science division, leaned forward. You never mentioned this before. There was no need, the Voidwalker replied. But now we face a common threat. The remaining swarm forces are also searching for precursor technology. If they find it first, they will become unstoppable. Admiral Jeho looked at Morgana. We need someone to lead this mission. Someone who understands both humanity and the Voidwalkers. Morgana felt the weight of all eyes on her. I accept the command, she said simply. You'll need a crew, Jeho continued. The best we have. Commander Kim is my second, Morgana said immediately, and Dr. Kang for the science team. Taiwan nodded his agreement. Dr. Kang smiled eagerly. The next 2 weeks passed quickly as they prepared for the mission. The TRS Phoenix was a marvel of engineering, sleek and powerful. Its crew was small but elite, just 50 people chosen from across the Terran Republic. On the day of launch, Morgana stood on the bridge, looking at her crew. Taiwan stood beside her, his posture straight despite his healing leg. Dr. Kang was at her station, already studying data. Ready for departure, Admiral, Taiwan reported. Morgana took one last look at Mars through the view screen. Then she gave the order, take us out. As the Phoenix pulled away from Mars, Morgana called Taiwan to her private office. There's something you should know, she said quietly. Something the Voidwalkers told only me. About the precursors? Taiwan asked. Morgana nodded. They didn't just create the Voidwalkers and the swarm. They created hundreds of species across the galaxy. and then they'd disappeared. Why? That's what we need to find out. Morgana's eyes were bright with purpose. The Voidwalkers believed the precursors had a plan, a reason for creating so many different forms of life. If we can find them, or what's left of them, we might find the key to humanity's future. Taiwan finished. Or its end, Morgana added softly. Are you ready for this mission, Commander Kim? Taiwan straightened. With you leading us, Admiral. Always. The Phoenix accelerated, its new engines glowing bright against the darkness of space, heading toward the unknown.